The Frozen Four is finally here. The road to Las Vegas is set and done. And we have actually two really interesting matchups. Not only do you have your traditional powerhouses, but you also have a really nice story going on with Wisconsin. And also, you have four teams that have won the most NCAA national championships. You have Denver, leading the way with 10. You've got Michigan at 9. You've got North Dakota at 8. And then you have Wisconsin coming in with 6. And obviously, in the last video, I ranked my top favorite jerseys from the Frozen Four teams. And now in this one, we're going to be predicting who is going to win and who is going to eventually go on to win the national championship. So let's jump right into it, starting off by talking about that team up north taking on Denver. Obviously, as you can tell from behind me, I'm an Ohio State fan, so I don't care to talk about Michigan a whole heck of a lot, but when their hockey program is that good, they kind of deserve it sometimes. To get to this point, Michigan had to go through Bentley, who they beat 5-1, and Minnesota Duluth, who they beat 4-3. On the other side, you have Denver, who I think really just kind of flew under the radar pretty much the entire season. And then they got to the tournament, and everyone was quickly reminded that Denver is still Denver. Denver blew past Cornell 6-0 and then went on to dispatch of the reigning national championship team, Western Michigan, beating them 6-2. And this matchup is so incredibly interesting to me because on one side, you have Michigan, who has been knocking on the door for the past several seasons now. And it felt like the one thing that they were missing was always that superstar goaltender who can come in and steal them a game. And I feel like they may have that with Jack Ivankovich. But when you take a look at the rest of the bracket, I feel like Michigan most likely has the most skilled team in terms of just offensive firepower. But then, as I said, on the other side, you have the Denver Pioneers. And I'm sorry, but at this point, you just cannot count them out. What David Carl has done with that program is simply incredible, making them into a legit contender year in and year out. And again, I feel like Denver has just kind of flown under the radar for most of the season, and then they got into the tournament and everyone was suddenly reminded of just how good Denver is. But the one thing that I think separates Denver from Michigan the most is that championship pedigree. Obviously, yes, Michigan has this uber talented roster, but I don't know if they have that championship pedigree that you have to have at this time of year. Denver, while they haven't won since 2022, they still have that championship pedigree, and having David Carr behind the bench, I think helps a lot, given everything that he has done throughout his coaching career. And that is in no way a knock on Brandon Arado. I think he is a very good coach as well, and I do expect him to eventually win at least one national championship at Michigan before his time is done. And I anticipate this game to be a really fun matchup. I think it's going to be really close, really tight. And I don't know if Michigan's skill is going to be able to shine through at this time. So I'm going to end up picking Denver. And that has nothing to do with me being an Ohio State fan and me just wanting to see Michigan lose. I just think Denver has that championship pedigree. I think they may not necessarily have the skill, but I think they're going to have enough to get past Michigan and advance on to the national championship. The other side of the bracket sees North Dakota taking on kind of the underdog of this year's tournament, Wisconsin. Now, it does sound kind of weird saying that Wisconsin has been kind of the underdog of this tournament because, again, Wisconsin, one of the more iconic and historic hockey programs in all of the NCAA. But I don't think a lot of people were expecting them to get to this point. Wisconsin took out Dartmouth 5-1, and then what I think really was the big eye-opener of this Wisconsin team was them getting rid of Michigan State, who was the number 3 ranked team in the nation, beating them 4-3. Close game, absolutely, but they got the job done against a very good team, a team that I thought at the beginning of the year was the clear-cut favorite to win the entire national championship this year. And then you have North Dakota, the number 2 ranked team in the country. To get to this point, they had to beat Merrimack, and they beat them 3-0, and then they beat Quinnipiac 5-0, not allowing a single goal to get to this point. So let's start off by talking about Wisconsin. Again, I talked about how Wisconsin really was not supposed to be here, and they really weren't. Like, they were a good team all year long. They had their ups and downs, obviously, but every team does. However, I don't think people were necessarily expecting them to be a Final Four team at the beginning of the season. And I also don't necessarily think people were expecting them to be a Frozen Four team at the beginning of this tournament. Again, beating Dartmouth, good. Dartmouth was a good team. They beat them pretty single-handedly. But again, beating Michigan State, I think, was the big eye-opener. And you never know what kind of confidence can come from beating a team like that. And as much as I want to pick Wisconsin here, I ultimately think North Dakota's defense is just going to be too much. Again, North Dakota hasn't allowed a single goal so far this tournament. Do I expect that to carry on going into the national championship game? Maybe, maybe not. But I ultimately just think that their defense and their overall style of play is just going to be too much for Wisconsin, and North Dakota is going to go on to play Denver in the national championship game. And then that takes us to the national championship game where I have North Dakota taking on Denver. Again, I talked about North Dakota's defense throughout this entire tournament, not allowing a single goal. And I talked about Denver's overall just championship pedigree, and it seems like whenever they get into this type of position, more times than not, they come out on top. And while I do expect this to be a very, very close, a very, very tight game again, like I do feel like all the other games are going to be, I think this one could be an all-timer when it's all said and done. Given the skill that's on both sides, given just the overall play from both of these teams coming into this national championship game, I think it could be one of those games that we talk about for quite some time. And after going back and forth for many, many hours, I ended up landing on North Dakota winning. Again, you can't ever count out Denver in these types of situations. I just feel like North Dakota may have a little bit of the easier matchup. I feel like going up against Wisconsin, who, again, no knock to Wisconsin. I love Wisconsin. I want Wisconsin to win in all actuality. But comparing them to Michigan is just not a fair comparison. So because I feel like North Dakota is playing a team that, yes, is very, very good, but just is not the same type of quality that Michigan is and that Denver is going to have to face. So because of that, I think North Dakota is going to end up winning this year's national championship. So this is where I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below what you think is going to happen in this year's Frozen Four. Who do you think is going to win and go on to the national championship? Who do you think is going to lose? And ultimately, let me know who you think is going to end up winning the big prize and getting that national championship. Also, let me know what you think about my bracket and who I think is going to win, who I think is going to lose. Let me know if I missed out anything. Again, this year's Frozen Four actually should be two really, really good games. You have that kind of underdog story coming in with Wisconsin. You have the true powerhouses like a Michigan taking on Denver, who is a really, really strong opponent. And then you have North Dakota, who I just feel like is playing the best defense right now at the right time. And you know what they say, defense wins championships. So as always, leave your thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section, and while you're down there, swing by the description and click the Linktree link. That is the only link in the description for a reason. That is because it will take you to all of the social media platforms for this channel. Currently, right now, we are only on Instagram and X. I will say the Instagram page does get a little more tender love and care. That is how this entire page started in the first place. But if you do enjoy these videos and you're looking for some extra content, again, Linktree link in the description. It'll take you to wherever you want to go. So with all that said and done, that is going to do it for this video here. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button. If you really enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button. Again, both are free. Both really help out the channel a lot. And of course, if you have made it to this point of the video, I want to say thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your busy day to watch these videos here, because it genuinely does mean the world to me. And as always, stay tuned for more hockey and jersey content coming in the future. We'll see you next time.